So let's get down to what we need in order to make these Pandora style paper beads. So the first thing you're going to need is a 5mm paper bead roller, and 5mm in inches is 3/16, I think you would call that. So it's just before the quarter. So I think that's 3/16. So if you've got a 3/16 or a 5mm roller, that's what you need. If you don't have one of these and you do have a 5mm knitting needle, you might be able to use that. So you're going to need one of those. You're going to need a pair of scissors to cut your paper up. And you're going to need some scrapbook paper, because you're going to want to use this for your core, and I've written down the sizes here, which I hope you can see. So for the scrapbook paper, it's going to be 1 centimetre by 12 centimetres long, or 6/16 by 4 3/4 inches for this piece of scrapbooking paper. Leave that there. You're also going to need printer paper. Now in England I would call it printer paper. It's what you stick in your printer in order to print a letter, but I think some other countries might call it copier paper. I'm not sure, but that's what I mean, the paper that you would stick in the printer and print a letter with. And what I have got here is I have got a sheet that I have designed myself. I'll leave a link below to it, and I thought this would make some really pretty beads. And what I've done is I've made life easier for myself. I've printed it, but on the other side I've printed out triangles that are 1 centimetre wide, and I've cut out 5 of those. So you can see I've got one sheet of paper and I've got so many triangles on there. So I've gone ahead and I've cut those out, because for this project you're going to need 5 of them. So I've got 5 strips, all the same, all cut out, and they are 1 centimetre wide by 28 centimetres long, or 6/16 wide by 11 inches long. And these lengths here are approximate because it's however long your piece of paper is. So if your paper isn't quite 11 inches long and it's 10.5, perfect, not a problem. You just don't want it to be sort of 5 inches long. You want it to be long and thin. Now the other thing that you're going to need are some silver grommets, or whatever colour you choose. Generally Pandora beads are made with a good quality grommet or eyelet or core, as I like to call them. These are silver plated beads cores, and you can get them in all sorts of different quantities, and that's what we are going to be using today. I also have in my shop solid silver ones, rose gold ones, yellow gold ones, and rhodium plated ones. So there's loads of options, but for today's one we're going to be using 2 of these silver plated bead cores for our Pandora style bead. So you're also going to be needing some glue. So without further ado, let's get rolling. So what you're going to need is you're going to need your bead roller, and we are going to roll this, and this is what is going to create a stable core for us on our bead. And you're probably thinking to yourself, why are we using 2 different types of paper? Why are we not just rolling our bead with this type of paper? This paper is great, I love this paper, but it's not going to give us the stable core that we need to our paper, to our Pandora style beads, especially when you are using a large bead roller. So that's what we are going to use this for. And the colour of this doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter at all, because you're not really going to see it, because your cores are going to take up some of the inside, and once it's on the necklace or bracelet or earrings or whatever you use them for, no one is going to see the inside. So it can be a good way to use up your scraps. So what we're going to do is we're going to start, and we're going to make a tube bead. So we're just going to hold it at the end, roll our bead, hold it at the end, making sure that we're rolling nice and evenly. Once we get to the end, I'm just going to hold it with my fingers. I'm going to get my glue and apply some glue. And one of the things I like about these needle nose glue applicators is that you can use the needle nose to apply the glue evenly and spread it out. Because I do find with scrapbooking paper, it does require more glue and more holding than normal paper does, than this printer paper. So I'm going to hold it in place for a few seconds, making sure that my fingers don't stick to that excess glue, and I've wiped it off. So I'm just going to hold it in place. And there we go. There is the foundation of our bead. So the next part is a little bit tricky, because what we've got to do is we've got to get 5 strips of this onto here. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn these over. We're going to turn them over, and we're going to stick them together. So what we're going to do is, but we don't want there to be huge amounts of overlap. And we're just sticking them together just to make it easier for us to stick them on. And it will start to make sense as we go. So I hope you can see it. I'm wondering if it might be easier if I move this piece of paper now, because hopefully you've got the measurements. That might make it easier. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're just going to apply a little bit of glue, not loads, teeny weeny little bit of glue. And I'm going to try and zoom in. Bear with me, it's going to be a bit of a camera wobble. There we go. Sorry. Need to invest in a better tripod. So we're going to put a teeny weeny little bit of glue on, and we're going to attach this to here with a couple of millimeters, maybe 3 millimeters, maybe 1/16 of an inch overlap. And you need to make sure that your triangles are running flat to each other, so that they're not going off at weird angles. That makes sense? So we're just making sure that all the way down they are meeting. Okay, and then we're going to attach again the next one. Teeny weeny little bit of glue, it doesn't need to be loads, it's just there just to hold them in place. So again, sticking this one on, and again making sure that it's lying with the others. Sorry, I hit the camera with my head. Really need to invest in a better tripod. If anyone's got any suggestions, please feel free to put them in the comments, because what I need is a tripod that will hold the camera this way down, and it's an iPhone, so it needs to be able to attach to an iPhone. So again, just making sure that everything's running downwards, and again we'll go with the last one. Pop the last one on. Like so. So I'm going to zoom back out again. Sorry for the wibbly wobbliness. Oh no, that's in. There we go. Sorry. Being at sea. I'm not at sea. Just saying. Okay, so now we've got all of them together, and they look pretty. I love this colour. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to attach them to our bead. So we need to find again our bit that we ended on. And we are going to stick some glue on. And now I do need to stick a little bit of extra glue on. But what I'm going to do, it's more that I need to distribute the glue better, because I want this to really stick down, because I need to be able to then hold it under tension in order to roll it. So I've stuck my glue on, and I think I am going to zoom back in a bit so that you can see this a bit better. Okay, so you can see I have started, put my glue on, and I'm going to take this end with all my other little strips attached to the other end, and I'm going to start by attaching it to here, like so, and I need to hold it in place. Can you see? I need to hold it in place. And I'm just going to hold it for 10 seconds just to make sure that it's definitely all in. And it's all stuck down. Okay, so now I can start the rolling process. If I turn it over, I'm going to start and roll. And I need to make sure that I am keeping all of my strips running at the same, so that they're not rolling like that. Okay, we need to make sure that they are all running the same. So with my hand, I tend to hold those lightly with my other fingers whilst I'm rolling. So one of the things with paper beads is I always find you kind of have to be quite dexterous, but you can't add these individually. So you can't add one and then the other and then the other. You do need to add them all at the same time. And you're probably saying to me, or you're probably sort of saying to the camera, why don't you just use scrapbook paper, which is thicker, in order to do this part? And the reason I don't is because, for the pure fact that it is thicker. And I find that what you end up with is a very stepped look to it. You don't end up with a curve to it. Because the scrapbooking paper is thick, you end up with it stepped. Does that make sense? So because here we've got the layers, and the layers sit next to each other and they move with each other as you're rolling, you end up with a smoother finish. So what we need to do now is, so you can see how much they've all moved. So they all started out as the same length, but we've now got this one down here, which is tiny. So we just need to add some glue to the ends of each of these, a bit underneath, and start to slowly manage how we put these down, because you want these to be going down nice and flat. So we're just rolling these, and you always have excess glue, and I'm just going to roll that in. There we go. One Pandora style bead. And because we've got so many layers of paper, it creates a more rounded bead, as opposed to doing it with thicker paper. So what we've got, take it off the paper bead roller. There we go. There is our bead. Now what we need to do is we need to glaze this and let it dry, and then we can come back and we can fit our cores. So I will be back when this is glazed. Okay, so we are back, and I have made 7 of these beads in total. So these are the finished ones. Let me show you. These are all glazed, and they've had their cores attached. And I may yet give them a final glaze, just one more glaze, can't decide. But these are finished ones. And what I've done is I've left one so that you can see how I go about putting the cores in, which really is really simple. Now what you need to make sure is that your end is free of any bits of glaze, so just give them a quick wipe over. If you need to, sand any bits off, use a scalpel, that sort of thing. Just make sure it's free of any loose bits of glaze. The other thing you need to do is, depending on the type of roller you've used, you're either going to have a large piece of paper going all the way across if you've got a bead roller where you have a slit that goes all the way across, or you're going to have just a tab of paper if you've got a bead roller like mine where it's just a slit. So what you need to make sure though, either way, is that that is, oh, I've just broke my cocktail stick, is definitely pushed to one side. Can you see it? I've sort of moulded it back, because if you don't, what will happen is, and if you have a look at this bead, is that when you push your bead in, it gets squashed. Now I've done this one deliberately so that you can see what happens. So what I would do is I would just take this bead core out, sort that piece of paper out, and then put the bead core back in again. But you can see what happens if you don't squash them nice and flat. So what you need to do is you take one of your bead cores like so, and you are going to insert them. Now this should be a nice fit. It shouldn't be a real struggle to get them in. Equally, it shouldn't be really loose. But either way, there are things you can do about it. So I'm just going to insert them in, and I'm very mindful of that side. So I'm almost going to put it in that side first, you see, and squash it in. Okay, and we've got it nice and flat. Now once that's in, and you can see I've slightly wrapped the paper up, squash it down. But once that's in, you can turn it over and you can insert the other side. Now the other thing that you can do is, once it's in and you know it fits, is you can get your cocktail stick and push it back out from the other side, because once you know that it fits, you can pop a little bit of glue on it. I would suggest just your normal PVA glue would be absolutely fine. It will hold them in place because it will hold the paper in place. So you just literally pop them in, and I'll show you again on this side. I'm going to make sure that I start from the side where I've got the paper, the tab of paper, pop it in there. I'm going to almost like, so I'm almost putting it in and squashing it downwards so that I am trying to get that paper to go nice and flat, like so. And it is quite tricky to get that paper to go flat, because as you see, I've pulled it up. But am I worried? No, just pull it back out again and straighten the paper out. And one thing that you could probably do is to stick some glue in this first of all and smush it down. That might help, might not help. There we go, that's better. I've smushed it down and now we've got a better finish. Just need to squash that down. There we go. So there we go. There is our finished Pandora Troll European bead style paper bead. And I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope you have a go at making some of these beads, because they're actually really easy. You know, initially you kind of think, oh, they might be a bit complicated trying to get that shape, but actually they are quite easy. And I don't know if you watched my last video, but my cat got in the last video, and she's again got in this video. There's one of her white hairs. So there we go. Please subscribe to the channel and hit the notification button, because I have got lots of tutorials coming up and you don't want to miss them. And love you lots. Thank you very much for watching, and I will speak to you soon.